So I started my first business when I was 29 years old, and today I'm 63. I now have a multi-billion-dollar company with over 10,000 apartments and hundreds of employees. I'm going to go over the brutally honest business advice that you do not want to hear, but you need to hear if you want to succeed. So in 2005, an investor by the name of Tom Anderson called me out of the blue looking to invest in apartments. He had just exited a company called Myspace. Now, Myspace sold for about $580 million to News Corp, which is Rupert Murdoch. In 2011, that exact company, Myspace, was sold for $35 million. So how does it go from $580 million to $35 million in just 6 years? Why did that happen? In 1999, there was a company called Excite, which was a search engine. It was ranked number 2 in the world. It had an opportunity to buy Google for less than $1 million, and it passed. Why did they do that? And in 1999, a company called Kodak, who had invented the digital camera, had over $16 billion in revenue, and just 13 years later, in 2012, they filed bankruptcy, Chapter 11. How did this happen? Now, there's all kinds of lessons inside of these 3 companies. I want you to understand that the mistakes that these big companies made are the exact same mistakes that small businesses make. And the difference of these mistakes and the things that they do are the difference of whether or not a company succeeds or fails. The first big problem is poor cash management. Now, that might sound obvious to you, but it's clearly not obvious to a lot of these big companies. Most small business owners, in some cases large business owners, don't understand that income needs to be more than expenses, period. All 3 examples, Myspace, Excite, and Kodak, had declining sales. They all had declining revenue and rising operating expenses or rising overhead. Sales solves everything and overhead kills. And what happens is middle management and inexperienced business owners, what they do is they say, we need more people for that. We need more people for that. Instead of looking at the changing technology and the processes and the systems that are needed to make people more efficient, to make sales drive income and revenue. Because the only thing that keeps a company going year to year is revenue increases. So the very first thing that these companies should have been watching is declining revenue. And during that period of time, there's a lot of strategies because company revenue does and can go up and down. When it goes down, the business owner or the top executive need to really step in and ask themselves, why? Why is the revenue going down? What am I missing? And in those 3 big company cases, it meant literally billions of dollars of value and revenue. As I like to say, no sales, no profit, no company. And certainly that is the case. And that's what happens with most small businesses, most entrepreneurs. And in many cases, when companies get so big and layered because there's all this bureaucracy and middle management, then everybody just doesn't understand the bigger picture. And that is sales solves everything. If business is like the heartbeat of a company, then sales is like the pulse. You have to have sales to stay alive. Period. You have to have sales and revenue to stay alive. What people do is they load up on legal and accounting and all the other things, mostly admin, and they don't pay attention to the bigger picture. So one of my businesses is a publishing company. And what happened in the publishing business, and many of you might not remember this, but people used to go to the bookstores and buy books and actually read them and then underline them and highlight them and all that kind of stuff. Well, right before my eyes, everything started moving digital. And everyone in the business was like, oh no, we're always going to have books. The same people that said that about newspapers. Same people said that about records or CDs or cassette tapes or 8-tracks. Everyone's like, or beta versus VHS. Everyone is like really hunkering down on whatever it is that they're biased about. So in my world, in the publishing world, everything started to move digital. And then, of course, it started to move to audio. Now, of course, people like to read books the way they want to read them. So some people can get the physical books, some like the audio, and some, of course, do the downloadable digital. But you have all 3 options. But when I first started in the publishing business, you didn't have all 3 options. You only had one. What I saw right before my eyes were big companies go out of business. So the book business really changed during that period of time. So the people that stuck with the old model of sending books to the corner bookstores, they died a slow death because of poor cash management. So right now we're in the process of buying $1 billion worth of real estate. If you're an investor and want to take a look at our deals, just click on the link below and it'll take you right to the form. The second lesson is, of course, what does the market need? What's the market size? What's the customer need? And what are the competitive dynamics? Those are three things that you have to watch and look for each and every time, whether you're starting a business or whether you have a business, as things change. It's clear that digital replaced film and Kodak went out of business, but why is it that a company that large, that had a monopoly on the entire industry, went down? What is it that no one saw? Why is it that in 2001, when the iPod came out and Steve Jobs decided to develop an MP3 player, which there were already MP3 players, but what he decided to do was have a better battery life and over 1,000 songs? Why is it that he leaped right over the Sony Walkman and Samsung and some of the other companies? And then, of course, that moved right into iTunes. Basically, he took the music industry and put it up digitally, just like what happened in the publishing business. And of course, the iPod turned into the iPhone and a number of other products, which we all know and love today. I have a friend right now that's investing in ATM machines, and I've had friends in this business before. I had one friend sell all of them to E-Trade and exited really, really nicely about 10 years ago. But the ATM machine, if you think about it, with online banking and all the stuff that's going on with banking, is basically down to just a handful of transactions each day. In fact, the ATM machine on the average does only 5 transactions a day. So if you're making $3 to $5 per transaction, that's like $15 to $25 a day. So that is not a business that you want to buy, because the ATM machine is expensive. You got the maintenance, you got the loading of the money and all the stuff. It just doesn't pay for itself. That business is basically dead. Another one, of course, are retail stores. In 2003, there were over 2,300 retail stores that went out of business because they haven't adapted. The brick and mortar stores, while people still like them, many of them are obsolete and there's almost no traffic. Banking also being one of those things. This would include CVS, Bed Bath & Beyond, Walgreens, Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, and the list goes on. There's a number of businesses that will go out of business in the next few years as a result of this whole bricks and mortar to online purchasing habits and style, which will also, of course, bring up the rise, whatever the new needs of that industry are, like last mile distribution for real estate. So this is precisely why industrial real estate is on fire right now, because it's coming out of the small mom and pop brick and mortar stores and moving to last mile distribution. Because when you order something, I know you guys do this, you want it now, or you want it tonight, or you want it the next day. There's a lot of businesses that will never make this change. So I have a real estate business, so I continually have to look at, what does my customer need? Who is my customer and what do they need? And what my customers need are all kinds of things, from work from home as an example. So from our apartment buildings, what that means is we need internet cafes and we need really strong Wi-Fi. We need package delivery services and all of those things, because those are some of the things that they look at. When they're home more, they're working from home more. So we have to design our entire business around that resident that might be at their house each and every day, and they might be running a business out of it. And then years ago, I made a mistake. I started a company called Complete Carpet Works. And what it was a carpet cleaning business. And I figured, hey, I'm cleaning carpets already in the properties that I own and manage. I as well start a business. So I bought 6 trucks, 6 machines, and I spent about $150,000. And 4 painful years later, I had lost about $250,000 and I had to put that thing out of business. And what I realized is that the carpet cleaning business had a lot of competitors. So I failed to look at the competitive dynamics. Competitors, everyone can do a room for about $35 or $40. And that's about what it was priced 10 years ago. For me, this company died a slow death. I was busy, but the margins weren't great for that business. So that business is saturated and has low margins. And a lot of people pull the trigger without taking a look at that as well. The third thing is businesses fail to plan and adapt. So what this means is each and every deal that I buy, each real estate deal that I buy has a full business plan. And you have to start with that, because what that does is it gives you direction and a goal of where you're heading. But each year we dust off that business plan, take a look at our performance, and then adjust based on the needs of the customer and the market, and of course the competition. And most businesses, I find, don't do that year to year to year effectively. If they do, like some of these big ones we mentioned, They're not in touch with the customer or the consumer. So think of the things that change from year to year. There's market changes. There's tech changes. There's customer behavior changes. And of course, there's sales issues that go up and down. So a lot of companies don't adjust to this each and every year, which they have to do. You have to be flexible and you have to adjust. You have to adapt and you have to plan. Some great examples are JCPenney, Sears, Pier 1, Toys R Us, Macy's, Blockbuster, Best Buy, Borders. It's interesting to me how huge companies like that can go down right before our eyes. Companies that were name brands at one time. The fourth one, which I call the bullseye of the dartboard, is margin. Now, margin is really, really important. So a low margin is, say, less than 5%. Average margin, let's say, is 10%. And a healthy margin is over 20%. Margin simply means profit. Typically, this means income minus cost of goods sold, minus overhead, which could be payroll and rent, minus taxes, and that's your net profit margin. So your net profit margin is something that a lot of people don't look at. Most people don't actually dig into all the details and figure out what does it actually cost to do business? What does it actually cost to do business with a customer? Years ago, when I was taking a look at my management company as one of the businesses that I own, how much does it cost for me to manage one property? And I went to the receptionist and accounting and everyone that's involved that touches this property from the beginning to end for a 30-day period. And we found at the time that it costs about $1,000 for one property to be managed effectively for the entire process that might happen inside of my company. That's also including the rent for the office that I actually was in. Once I learned that my cost to operate one property was $1,000, I was able to take a look at any accounts that I had under that, and I gave them all 30-day notice because I knew that I was losing money. If I was managing something for $500 a month and it cost me $1,000, I was losing $500 a month on that one client. And then, of course, I went to margin, and I decided that I was not going to take any accounts under $1,500 a month. So $1,500 a month at $1,000 of cost. Now, of course, my margin is $500. That's obviously way more than 20%. But I also knew that I was going to grow and there was going to be some costs with the growth. So that was my new number. And at that point, my company got extremely profitable. The management company started kicking off lots of cash, which enabled me to upgrade the amount of money I could pay my people, to upgrade all the things that I needed to do to be able to be competitive in the marketplace. Obviously, there's a lot more things that I've learned since I was 29 years old. However, these are the top 4 that I wanted you to have today. If you take a look at the mistakes those 3 big businesses made from the very beginning, all these little things will start to make sense. So most people think that they need to get rich fast, but the reality is it takes a long time to build wealth. As you heard, I didn't even start my first business until I was 29. So if I had to start over today with nothing, I just made a full video on exactly the steps I would do to get back to where I am today.